You know, when it comes to charitable giving, for many of the world's largest family fortunes, there's a big problem. There just aren't enough nonprofits around that are able to take in multi-million-dollar gifts. But there's a new solution, and it's gaining a lot of traction. And it's ripping a page straight from high finance. It's called philanthropic private equity. And today I'm going to tell you all about it. Ultra-high net worth families, it turns out, have been searching for better ways to deploy their philanthropy. And that is where this new idea called philanthropic private equity comes into play.
We all know that in this country, there's been this huge accumulation of wealth. We have these individuals and families that are worth billions of dollars. They're public figures, and the public's attention is captivated by them. They've got this immense dedication to philanthropy, and it's not totally clear how they can deploy it.
This is Mark Reed. He's one of the heirs to the Reed family fortune. The Reed family owns nearly 1.4 million acres of prime forest land in the Pacific Northwest, making it the 5th largest landowner in the United States. And I talked to Mark about some of the challenges the ultra-high net worth have when it comes to giving and philanthropy.
One of the biggest problems they have is how do they put their corpus to work for social good. There aren't a lot of options because even though the needs are huge, the organizations that are equipped to take in massive gifts are just not ready. They can't deploy.
Mark has noticed that many philanthropists are frustrated that there aren't enough places where their donations and gifts can be put to work.
They can put the money in the bank account, but you're not going to see it working.
Imagine for a second that you're Mackenzie Scott, the ex-wife of Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. When she and Bezos split up back in 2019, she inherited Amazon stock worth $36 billion. But Mackenzie has a problem. She pledged that she wanted to give at least half of it away to charities and nonprofits. But check this out. Despite the fact that she's tried, Scott has donated $14 billion away to charities since 2019. Today, she's actually worth several billion more than she was 5 years ago. But why? Here's the deal. Scott, like many other billionaires around the world, is finding that it's hard to give away mega gifts in the tens or hundreds of millions to nonprofits that are looking to really solve some of the world's biggest problems.
One of the things I believe in is there are certain problems that can be solved with philanthropy, as in donating, and there's certain problems that are only going to get solved by investing.
This is Justin Reyes. Now, Justin was a partner at KKR, the firm founded by Henry Kravis, the man who is widely considered to be the godfather of the private equity industry. Justin believes that the only way to solve some of the world's most complex problems is by using an approach to philanthropy that looks a lot more like private equity investing than traditional charitable giving.
Most people think of giving and philanthropy and investing as completely separate things. Why can't you actually combine the two?
Now, Justin founded KKR's business in Asia and the South Pacific and did over $10 billion in transactions over the course of his career. And today has become one of the finance industry's leading advocates for applying the principles of private equity to the world of mega philanthropy. What do you think are some of the challenges in talking to whether they're the heirs to family fortunes or self-made multimillionaires and billionaires? What are some of the challenges in explaining this concept to them?
I think if you can get to those people directly, I think they often understand it. Sometimes when you're speaking to their foundation, if you can't get to them directly, the challenge is that you're often speaking to their foundation side, where, again, this concept of bringing two things together, where they only understand one of them, which is generally the philanthropic side, it's hard for them to kind of grasp the concept of putting kind of private equity or risk capital type thinking together with philanthropy. But often, if you can actually speak to the head of the family office, or the patriarch, or the entrepreneur, they often get it, and they often find it really intriguing.
One of the areas that philanthropic private equity is gaining traction is in the housing sector. I was recently in New York and I met up with Sean Davis, a former deal maker at Advent International, one of the world's largest private equity firms. Sean is also the founder and CEO of Merton Capital, one of the country's first advisory services dedicated exclusively to putting together philanthropic private equity deals. He sees affordable and workforce housing as areas in which mega philanthropy can really make a difference. First off, what is philanthropic private equity?
Philanthropic private equity is when you invest big philanthropy into large private companies. They could be Fortune 500 companies, they could be just other private companies who can take in a lot of capital and put it to work quickly.
But where's the philanthropy in that?
The capital that's coming in is the philanthropy. So it might be 0% loans, which is what we've done. It could be taking equity stakes in that larger company or in projects that are done in conjunction with the private company. But essentially the vector to get the philanthropy invested is through a large private company.
Walk me through a deal. Like, what would a typical deal look like in very simple terms?
Sure. We just did our first proof of concept project so that donors can see that we can use philanthropy with private developers. And so simply what we did is we took gifts from philanthropists and did a 0% loan to a developer. And a 0% loan sounds very low, and that's the point. In exchange for that, they would lower the rent of one unit for 10 years by about $1,000 a month.
So here's how philanthropic private equity worked in this case. Sean's firm partnered with a developer to create an affordable housing development. He offset some of the developer's costs by extending a 0% loan, reducing the developer's cost of capital, which in turn enables them to offer housing units with a lower monthly rent. Then Sean took this deal to a number of big donors to get this loan underwritten. Their philanthropy in this case was the unconventional 0% loan. The developer still has to pay back the principal, and that's where the scalability comes in. Large philanthropists can recycle that same capital over and over.
I think every person who has philanthropy and wants to solve problems in America is looking at housing, because housing tends to be the most expensive part of any solution, any social solution.
So what ends up happening is the developers have a lot more capacity, but they just don't have access to the capital.
This is Anand Tajani, a former partner of TPG Capital, which is one of the largest private equity firms in the world. Anand led TPG's real estate business for many years, closing over $30 billion in transactions over the course of his career. He has emerged as another leading advocate for how philanthropic private equity can be leveraged to address housing shortages across the US and around the world. And as you think about your counterparts or the developers and the different institutional players on the real estate development side that you commonly engage with, what do you think their approach or their reaction is going to be when they start learning about this type of philanthropy?
I think the scalability here is real. The demand for affordable housing is pretty well known. The scale of the projects are and can be large in size. You could be doing $100 to $200 million schemes.
So there you have it. Philanthropic private equity is really on the frontier in terms of how some of the world's largest fortunes are rethinking how they deploy their philanthropy. And with potentially, literally, trillions of dollars in private philanthropy sitting on the sidelines, this could be a vector that solves some of society's and our planet's most intractable problems. For more on this issue, check out my recent article at Observer where I take an even deeper dive on this issue. For The Observer, I'm Eric Weirson. See you next time.